Hey there, welcome to episode 90 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is some action figures that I inherited from my good friend Andrew Vaughan. Now, if you watch my channel regularly, you might recall that I did a video about 2 months ago. It was episode 79, where I kind of took a break from showing you my collection, and I actually showed you Andrew's collection, at least the best that I could at that given time. So you see, Andrew, he passed away on March 18th, just a few days kind of after the whole world got weird, because I think it was around March 15th when COVID kind of really hit North America, and I was told not to go into work anymore, and we were all told to stay in our homes and stay socially distant, and it was a really weird time. And then, so just a couple of days later, I found out my friend Andrew died, and we weren't able to have a funeral. I wasn't able to go see friends to talk about Andrew. It was a really, really tough time, and it's still super tough. I don't know if I'll be able to talk about him without having to pause the camera here, because it's really tough. But anyway, Andrew was a collector like myself, and I'm fortunate in that I'm somebody that has a lot of good friends. I don't like to say this person is my best friend, because then it kind of implies those guys are lesser friends. I have a lot of good friends, but Andrew was definitely one of my best friends. And one aspect where he was my best friend was when it came to collecting. Most of my other buddies that I hang out with aren't really into this stuff. Like, I also did an episode a while back with two of my other best friends, Miguel and Trevor. You might have seen that one. I recommend you check it out. I had fun doing that episode. We got drunk and we talked about toys. But kind of what was funny about it, hanging out with Miguel and Trevor, is that I'm kind of the nerd telling these two guys about toys when they don't care about toys. And that's kind of what's funny about our interactions. But Andrew, he legitimately loved this stuff the same way I do. And he's like the only guy I've ever really had in my life, other than my older brother, who got it. So, like, some of my friends have a passing interest and all that sort of thing, but nobody else is a collector. Doesn't occupy their time, doesn't occupy their wallet in the same way that it did with me and Andrew. And we geeked out together. Like, we liked talking about comic books, talking about movies, and mostly talking about toys. Like, we both loved this stuff. And so that's really, really tough to lose him for a lot of reasons, but that's one reason for sure. Like, I buy so many toys, and I don't like just spending the money buying it and then putting it on my shelf and nobody's aware I even bought it or anybody even cares about it. Like, I don't play with it, so it's hard to get the value out of it almost. Like, if I spend $50 on a toy and it just bloop, goes on the shelf and never gets touched again. So that's one of the reasons I started doing these videos, and I started posting them on Instagram when I used to write a toy blog. It was kind of my way of sharing them, talking about them, my way of playing with them and enjoying the figure. So I feel I was getting some value, some bang for my buck. And besides sharing it with you guys, strangers on the internet, Andrew was the guy that, like, whenever he came over, I knew he wanted to see what I got. He was excited to see my new stuff, or he'd say, like, "Oh man, I saw you post that on Instagram. I've really been dying to see it." So anyway, with Andrew, no longer being a part of my life, I'm gonna have to lean on you guys a little harder. Please, feel free to comment below and chat toys and other nerdy nonsense with me, because I don't want to bore Miguel and Trevor to death with it. So after Andrew died, I was talking to his roommate, Richard, and Richard told me that he was going to be moving into a new kind of one-bedroom apartment, and so that Andrew's family was going to be coming and boxing up all of his belongings. And I felt it was a shame. I wasn't sure what his parents were going to do with all of his stuff. If they were going to put it in storage and put it up in their shed, or if it was going to get donated to the Salvation Army or sold at a flea market or whatever. So regardless of whatever they decided to do with it, I wanted to document it for him before it got broken up. So what I wanted to do was go over to Andrew's house, take my tablet with me, kind of do like a tour of his apartment, the way it was set up, show off everything he had. Unfortunately, with COVID going on, that just wasn't a possibility. I couldn't go over there. At least I wasn't supposed to go over there. I didn't want to, ask Richard to let me come over, because I didn't know how comfortable he'd be with it. So, we kind of just waited to see how things would go, but COVID just kind of stuck around and things kind of kept getting worse for a while. So eventually I didn't want to not post the video and miss my opportunity to do that before the collection got taken apart. So I asked Richard if he wouldn't mind filming some stuff and taking some pictures for me. And he did, but he had a lot of other stuff on his plate. He didn't really get a chance to take any video, but what he did do is he cleaned up some of the figures, set them up nice and clearly, and took some shots for me, and he just emailed me those still images. So that's how I was able to put episode 79 together, and I just kind of took those still images and talked about what Andrew had in his collection. And yeah, the collection has now since been broken down. They've moved out of that apartment, so everything's all boxed up. So I very much appreciate Richard getting that stuff for me when he did. But anyway, maybe about a month ago, so I'm up here in Canada, and things are looking much better here in Canada these days as far as COVID goes, especially here on the East Coast. Currently, my province of Nova Scotia, I don't think has any active cases. So yeah, things are definitely lightening up. Stores are opening, that sort of thing. Anyway, so just before everything was boxed up, Richard invited me over to the apartment, and he said, that he'd had a couple of people come through there, and he was telling people, if you want to grab a memento, something of Andrew's, by all means take it. His family had given the okay for Richard to have people come through and take some things. So Richard invited me and said, yeah, is there anything here that you'd like to take from Andrew's collection? And I'll be honest, Andrew had a much bigger collection than I remembered, and a much bigger collection than I featured back in episode 79, because he had stuff on shelves, but he also had probably like 5 big tote bins, like full of figures that weren't on display and maybe hadn't been on display for years. So when I went over there, Richard handed me all these tote bins. So besides what I could see around the apartment, I had to root through all these things, and he had a lot of good stuff. Even if it's stuff I wasn't necessarily interested in, I was like, wow, somebody would really appreciate this stuff. Like, he was really into Ghostbusters, and he had, from the vintage toy line, he had the Ecto-1, the car. He also had the fire station, which was the Ghostbusters headquarters. He had a vintage Optimus Prime figure. And all kinds of stuff that I had forgotten that he had, or some of it I maybe never knew that he had. It's just a lot of stuff, and so much of it, reminded me of him, and I would have liked to have more pieces, but at the same time I didn't feel right just walking out of there with arms full of stuff. It just felt a little wrong taking anything, but at the same time I was I knew Andrew would probably want me to have stuff more than it to just end up in a box in an attic or sold at a flea market or something. So I definitely grabbed a few things, and so those are the items that I want to share with you today. So yeah, let's just get into that. So this first figure you see here is the Red Sun Superman, which you saw sitting on the corner of my desk during the introduction. So this Superman, he might look a little different than the Superman you're used to. You'll notice he's got a gray outfit, and on his chest he's got the hammer and sickle. And normally, even though Superman defends everybody in the whole planet, he usually kind of fights for truth, justice, and the American way. He was raised in America. But here you see him carrying the flag of the Soviet Union. So what this is based on is there was a 3-issue miniseries published in 2003. and it was what DC refers to as an Elseworlds story. It's kind of like Marvel sometimes publishes stories called What If, and it's kind of just crazy scenarios like what if Captain America killed Wolverine or something. So it's not like a real story, it's kind of just like a an alternate reality or a what if. So when DC wants to tell a story that's not set in the regular continuity, they call it an Elseworlds. So yeah, this was a 3-issue Elseworlds story about Superman. Instead of crash landing in Kansas, where he was raised by a nice American family, instead he crash landed in, I think it was Russia, and he's raised in the Soviet Union. So it was an interesting story. I bought the miniseries when it came out, and I've been a fan of it ever since. It's been many years since I've read it. I probably should give it another look, see how it holds up. It was recently, actually just earlier this year in 2020, adapted to an animated series, which was quite good as well. So yeah, I watched the movie when it came out this year, and so I still enjoyed that. So I imagine the comic still holds up pretty good. Anyway, so let's take a closer look at this figure. So you'll see he comes with a display base that says Superman Red Sun, Elseworlds. His only accessory, I believe, was this flag. So that fits nicely in his hand there, but I'm going to yank that out for a second. His wrist here is a little loose from holding that flag for so many years. So the flag might be a little heavy for him. But yeah, there's nothing on this side of the flag. You get the Soviet crest there on this side. It's kind of a nice gold pole with a little star on the top. So it's a nice little accessory. As for the figure, so really nice sculpted on there. I really like the face sculpt. He moves pretty well, although this figure was produced by DC Direct in 2005. So just a couple of years after the miniseries first came out. And DC Direct, they made really cool figures, and I have quite a few of them. My issue with them is that they never had very good articulation. So these things were trying to compete with like Marvel Legends. And Marvel Legends, they could bend them every which way. But a lot of DC Direct guys, they maybe don't turn at the waist. They don't move in the torso. There's very little leg movement. There's no swivels in the arms or anything like that. Sometimes the wrists don't move. So this guy's got pretty good articulation for a DC Direct figure. His head turns, arms, pretty good range of motion there. Elbows, wrists, both legs. I'm sure they move. You can see there's a joint there, but they're feeling pretty stiff. The knees, and yeah, I think that's it. The cape, it's kind of a softer plastic, so it's got some bend to it. But besides the lack of articulation, which honestly I didn't mind that much because I display my figures, and when they have little articulation, it makes them a little more sturdy, so they stand up nice and solid. Plus, DC Direct almost always came with display bases, so that was nice. Helped the figure stand up tall and straight. But my other problem with DC Direct figures is that they tend to be rather brittle. I've had quite a few break, and it's not because I was rough with them or anything like that. I literally maybe just pick one up after a couple of years and their arm falls off. The plastic just seems to deteriorate. And that's why I don't want to risk moving his leg forward, because I'm scared if I push that forward, it might snap right off. So, I'm going to leave Superman as is. But yeah, so with this figure, it came out, like I said, 2005. They also put out a Wonder Woman in the same line, because even though it was a Superman Elseworlds story, it did feature a lot of other DC heroes. So you get to see Soviet versions of Batman, and the Green Lantern was kind of set during a different era. It was kind of interesting. Anyway, so the first line of figures in 2005, they put out Superman and Wonder Woman. Now Andrew actually had both of those figures, but it was the Superman that I've always been really envious of him having. So the Superman is what I grabbed. The following year in 2006, they also put out Red Sun versions of Batman and an older version of Superman as he eventually takes over as the leader of the Soviet Union. So this figure represents him as the leader, the president. And then in 2008, they put out a box set that had all the previously released figures along with a version of Bizarro Superman. So there's quite a few figures in this collection.
and they're all neat. I actually really like the Batman one too. If Andrew had the Batman, I would have grabbed that one as well, because I really like these figures. Although I was able to get a Funko Pop version of the Red Sun Batman not too long ago, so that's pretty cool. So why did I grab this figure of all the figures? Well, not only do I love this figure, but Andrew loved this figure as well. I know he was a big fan of the Red Sun storyline. He was a big fan of Superman. He was a big fan of DC Comics. He was more a DC guy, whereas I'm more a Marvel guy. So I remember when this figure came out, and I don't know why, I just didn't buy it at the time. Andrew got his hands on it, and then I was kind of jealous right from the get-go, thinking that was a great figure, and then it was hard to find after that. He has never not had this thing on display. There's been times when he's had to move into smaller apartments and he didn't have enough room to display stuff, but Red Sun Superman was always out. He knew how much I liked it. When he came over and shot a video with me, and we talked about the top 10 toys in our collection, Red Sun Superman was number 3 on his list as his third favorite toy in his collection. So I grabbed this one for a couple of reasons. Partially because I just straight up like it as a toy, but also because it it does remind me of Andrew, and I'm happy that it's in my collection now. I'll take good care of it for him, and I'm going to make sure this figure, as well as everything else that I have, they're going to be displayed together on a shelf specifically devoted to Andrew. I'm not just going to take Superman here and stick him on my DC shelf where he'll get lost amongst the other guys. All these guys here are going to get special placement in the collection. So yeah, that's Red Sun Superman. Now the next figure I got here is of Bizarro Superman, or just Bizarro. Now this figure here is another DC Direct figure. This one was produced in 2007, and he is based on the Superman Batman toy line. So around that time, in the mid-2000s, they relaunched the Superman Batman team-up comic. Sometimes it's called Superman Batman, sometimes it's called World's Finest, but there's quite often a comic book being published that features both Batman and Superman. So this is the first time I collected that book, like when it first came out, because I was a big fan of Ed McGuinness, which was the artist on that book. He's got kind of a big, exaggerated, cartoony, very stylized way of drawing. So I was excited to see his take on all these DC characters, because him and writer Jeff Loeb launched the book with a pretty big storyline that featured a whole magnitude of DC heroes and DC villains. And so it was kind of no surprise that DC Direct decided to make a toy line based on that comic book. And so I bought a bunch of the figures based on that comic book, because I just, like I said, I'm a big fan of Ed McGuinness, and I'm a big fan of when they produce figures that are based on a particular artist's artistic style. So you can look at this toy and say, oh yeah, that's not just Superman, but that's an Ed McGuinness Superman. And make no mistake, this is an Ed McGuinness Bizarro. Like everything about this guy, with the crazy face, the eyebrows, the way the hair is very like kind of jagged and cartoony looking. Even the way his proportions, like his arms might appear kind of small, the cape kind of small. Just everything, really the muscles, the musculature is very much Ed McGuinness. But yes, this is a great figure. Andrew ended up with a few of the Ed McGuinness figures that I didn't have. And as years had gone on, I was kind of regretted not getting more of them. So like you'll see here, I already have the Superman. And you can probably see the similarities in style and just the physique. Like these probably have the exact same body, I would guess. Capes are a little bit different. And you'll see here this guy comes with a logo, like a display base that's got the Superman and Batman logos combined. I think all the figures had that base. So I probably should have got one with Bizarro. Andrew might have had it, but these guys were all just kind of loose. He didn't have them on display bases. So I wasn't going to like dig around for it. So I don't have his display base. just to show you some other examples of some of the other characters I have in the Ed McGuinness style. So again, there's Batman, very bulked up. They've all got that kind of same pose. I actually do have an Ed McGuinness Aquaman. And here's a Flash. But yeah, so you can see I have a bunch of these characters. I really love this style, and so I wish I had got them all. At the time, I didn't feel I needed them all, but as the years have gone on, I'm kind of kicking myself. Another one of the ones that Andrew had that I really wanted is there was a storyline in the 90s, I think it was, when Superman gets some new powers, and he had a blue mode and a red mode. Both of them looked the exact same, except one was blue, one was red. I didn't buy these at the time when they came out, but I have since been able to go back and get the blue Superman. So I would kind of like the red Superman to complement him. Andrew had the red Superman. But again, it was just a matter, I wasn't looking to go in there and just take every toy that I thought was cool. It just felt a little weird going in there and picking through my friend's collection. So I didn't grab absolutely everything I wanted. I left lots of cool stuff behind because, I want his family to be able to do whatever they want to do with the stuff. He's got a nephew. Maybe his nephew's going to be interested in this stuff. I don't know. But anyway, with Bizarro here, I think he's a really cool figure. He was kind of an afterthought. He was not one I had in mind when I went there to look at Andrew's stuff, but I kind of flicked past him when I was going through a box, and I thought, man, this guy's pretty cool. I should grab Bizarro as well. One piece I know I am missing as well is he had a, I don't want to say a necklace, maybe a medallion, which was a big, like, kind of a stone tablet that said number 1 on his chest. I'm sure Andrew probably had that too. He was pretty meticulous. He took care of his things, so I'm sure he had all the accessories. But I didn't necessarily like the way that medallion looked on this figure anyway, so I wasn't compelled to dig around looking for it. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this Bizarro Superman. And yeah, he's going to look nice in my collection. So the next figure that I took here is this little caveman figure that was produced by the company Papo, I think is how it's pronounced. And it's dated the year 2000, according to the little stamp on his leg here. See, Papo 2000 there. So this guy, he's not articulated in any way. He's just a solid hunk of plastic. Now he's got 2 accessories that you can actually take out of his hand. So he's got this kind of spiked club. I don't want to risk breaking it though, so I'm going to leave it in his hands. It might not even be intended to be removable. Same as he's got this spear as well. So it's kind of warped, unfortunately. There's a bit of a bend to this thing now. And just like the club, I'm not going to risk pulling it out of his hands, but it does look like it slides out as a separate piece. But otherwise, he's a fun little sculpt. Just kind of a cute little caveman. Now this guy here, you can usually find Papo toys at like educational toy stores. Like the kind of places teachers shop. And you can find like Rubik's Cubes and I don't know, things like that. They usually make things like dinosaurs and little zoo animals. Again, not articulated, but just kind of solid hunks of plastic. But they're kind of expensive. It's not like the solid rubber dinosaurs you find at the dollar store. They make really nice, very nice painted, really nicely sculpted dinosaurs. And they're also really good about putting out figures that are kind of up to date with current science. So if a new dinosaur is discovered, Papo makes a figure. They've got dinosaurs with feathers on them out there nowadays and everything. It's some pretty cool stuff. Anyway, so why did I get Andrew? Well, I guess I should first mention, I bought this caveman for Andrew. And that's partly why I decided to take it back. Because several years ago, maybe about 11 years ago, I was in Europe. And I did a tour with a group called Kentucky, which was for people like under 30, and they just kind of bus you around all over Europe. You can do different packages for 1 week or for like 2 months. Anyway, me and my girlfriend at the time, we did a 2-week, or maybe it was like 17 days or something, but we did approximately 2 weeks going through Europe, and we went to a bunch of different countries, and we went to Rome. And depending on what like city I was in or what country I was in, I was trying to buy myself nerdy little souvenirs that represented the place I was at. So I didn't want to just buy t-shirts everywhere, although I did buy a few t-shirts. But when I was in Rome, I found this little toy store, and it was pretty close to the Colosseum. Like, you could see the Colosseum when you stepped out of the door of this store. You could look down the road and see it. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, I found these gladiator animals. So you see here's a gladiator, like, alligator, and the gladiator rhinoceros. And as a big fan of like battle beasts when I was a kid, which are like a toy line of little animal warriors, like I love animal warriors. So when I saw these things, I was like, these are awesome. Like the sculpting is really nice on them. Let's get a close look at them here. So really nice sculpting, really nice paint. So yeah, very nice work, Papo. Anyway, so I saw these things and I was like, this is super cool. I've never seen these things before. These are gladiator animals that I'm buying outside of the Colosseum where real life gladiators used to fight. So I was pretty excited by this find, and that was the souvenir that I bought for myself. But as I was going through their kind of like bin of toys, because they had dinosaurs and they had a couple other animal gladiators. These were my two favorites. But I came across this caveman guy, and I immediately recognized him as this little toy that was used in a Dorito commercial that had been out at the time. And in the commercial, and I showed this on my last Andrew video, so forgive me if this is repetitive for any of you people, but there was this commercial that used to be out at the time. I think the premise was that people could submit fan-made Dorito commercials, and one of them would be chosen, and the person who made the best commercial would win a cash prize. And they would air them all on TV. Most of them, well, all of them, I forget, except for this one. Some guy made a commercial, and this little guy was a part of it. And me and Andrew both thought the commercial was really funny, and we used to quote it to each other.
Hey, you should check out my ad on DoritosGuru.ca.
What, you made an ad?
Yeah, I talk about the new Doritos chip and dance around. Just watch it. If I win, I get a heap of cash.
Why would I watch it?
Chip hat!
So when I saw this figure, I was like, oh my god, it's the Chip Hat Caveman. Now, I had no idea that these things were common. Like, even these things, I've seen these things 20 minutes from my house for much less than I paid for them in Europe. But at the time, I had never seen them before, and I thought it might have been a unique thing to Europe. And this guy here, I was like, what are the chances I would find the Dorito Caveman in a bin of toys in Rome? So I paid more than I like to admit for all of these things, but I bought this for Andrew because I thought he would get a huge kick out of it. And sure enough, he did. He couldn't believe I found this thing. And I think he's a really cool toy, but I kind of forgot all about that because, like I said, I gave this to Andrew like 11 years ago. The joke has long since run its course. Andrew did not have that thing on display anywhere. I had forgotten all about it, except for when I made the last video about Andrew's collection. Not only did I use the photos that Richard had taken for me, but I went on Andrew's Facebook and I found some old pictures he had posted of his toys, and I found the picture he had posted of this thing when I first got it for him. So that jogged my memory, and I was like, oh my god, the little Chip Hat Caveman. And so yeah, when I went to Richard's like 2 months after shooting that video, and I came across this guy in the box, I thought, man, I got to take the Chip Hat guy home because I can't imagine anybody else is going to enjoy him as much as me and Andrew did back in the day. And just an interesting little fact, when I was going to put this video together, I Googled this figure just to see if I could find out any information about it. I didn't really, although they did actually release a new version, an updated version of this caveman in 2018. I think it was to be a little bit more politically correct or something, because this guy here apparently was billed as caveman figure, and he's all kind of hairy. But then a newer version has less hair on him, and he's called Prehistoric Man. So yeah, that's kind of Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting little thing that if you go out there looking for this guy now, he might not be as easy to find as he used to be, because now he's a little more cleaned up and civilized. But anyway, there you go. There is the Chip Hat Caveman. So next up, I have this whole set of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles by NECA Toys. Now, these figures here were produced by NECA back in 2008. And I'll be honest, it seemed like longer than that to me. I know 2008 was like 12 years ago, but yeah, I thought Andrew had these things even longer than that, but I guess not. I found out from my research these things were produced in 2008. They were available as a complete box set, which is how Andrew bought these. There was also a version that was released as a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive that I think the only difference was some extra accessories. Then they later released a black and white set, and I remember seeing both this set and the black and white set for sale at Strange Adventures, our favorite local comic shop. And I considered buying both of them at the time. They were kind of expensive. I want to say in like $100 range or so. And man, have I been kicking myself for years for not buying it. I think the black and white set was actually like super cool because the old Ninja Turtle comic books were published in black and white. And as much as I love these figures here, I think I might like the black and white ones even more. And then I believe NECA also released all these guys for sale individually as well. Probably shortly after the box sets came out, or maybe even at the same time. I don't think I ever saw the individual packed figures. But anyway, these guys here are based off the original Ninja Turtle comic books. Some of you may not be aware that when the Ninja Turtles first came out, the guys that created them, it was Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, and it was an independent comic book. It was pretty gritty. It was kind of, I don't want to say a spoof, but it kind of borrowed concepts from Daredevil, and so there was a lot of ninjas, a lot of violence. Yeah, it was kind of before, Archie Comics took them over and Playmates started making these child-friendly toys. But the original Turtles were actually kind of dark and gritty. And that's what these toys represent. And I think they look awesome because they really look like the original artwork. So as I was saying before with the Bizarro figure, you can really tell that it's Ed McGuinness's artwork. Like when you look at these, there's no denying that these are based on Eastman and Laird's artwork because they just look awesome. Just everything about them. The shape of them, the style of them, the way the lines are painted in there. Like it's not just sculpted detail, but like there's kind of a black wash so that you see in all the little dents and everything. It looks like these guys just came right off of the page. They look great. So, yeah, so NECA produced these guys. They've been making Ninja Turtles for a while because, as you might be aware, if you're even a casual Ninja Turtles fan, NECA has been making really awesome toys just the last few years. Like I've been collecting NECA's animated Ninja Turtle line. They've been putting these figures out the last 2 years or so. So these guys look really great. So these guys are based on the 80s cartoon. NECA is also making a line of movie-based turtles. So you see these are the turtles based on the live-action movies from the 90s. So these are also really cool looking figures. So NECA has always been making these kind of collector-driven Ninja Turtle figures. These guys are all pretty expensive. So these are not the turtles you would buy for your kids to play with in the sandbox or in the bathtub or anything. When it comes to childhood or like toys for children, that license has always belonged to Playmates. So here is like the original Playmates Ninja Turtle figure from back in the 80s. So this is the one that I had as a kid. So, he's kind of short, he's kind of squat, he's durable. He doesn't have a lot of articulation. He doesn't have a ton of accessories to lose. Just a fun toy, and they hold up pretty good. Like this guy still looks great after like 30 years. So yeah, so that's a kind of a child-friendly toy. And Playmates to this day is still making Ninja Turtle figures. Like here's Leonardo from one of their kind of recent Nickelodeon-based lines. I forget the year that these things came out. I want to say maybe 2012 or something. Right now, there's a new new Ninja Turtle cartoon that Playmates is making the toys for, which have an even different look. And so the funny thing is, I like these toys by Playmates. Not only are they still fun and colorful, they look like the characters, but they're nice and cheap. Like you could buy these guys for about $15 in Canadian. Probably in the US, they're probably closer to like $9.99. So really cool. So I like these figures. And Playmates even took a go at making Eastman and Laird style turtles at one point. They put out all 4 turtles in this style. So you see, this is a Donatello with the staff, but he's got the red bandana because the original turtles all had red bandanas. You could only tell them apart because of their weapon. It was only when they kind of started getting marketing for children that they said, you got to be able to tell these guys apart. Let's put a letter on their belt. Let's give them all different color masks. And so that's what started that. But based on the original cartoon, it was really just the weapons that you could tell them apart. Now, when I saw these, I thought, this is cool, and it's nice that I can get these guys for $10 to $15 a piece. I can finally scratch that itch of these figures that I never bought back in the day when they came out in 2008. But I bought one of them, and I just like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to buy the rest, because if I had all 4 of these, I'm always going to know this is just kind of a cheap imitation of these. Like, these guys look pretty good. I appreciate what Playmates did. This is probably the best version of an Eastman and Laird turtle that Playmates could give us. But it wasn't doing it for me. So I was like, you know what? After Donatello, I wasn't going to buy the other 3. Because I was like, if anything, rather than buy these guys, I'd rather pay the big money, go on eBay, and buy this set. So this set of Eastman and Laird turtles, along with the Red Sun Superman, are probably the toys in Andrew's collection that I've always been the most envious of. They're all just great figures. Andrew had a lot of things that I already had. Like as far as his best of list, when he named his 10 best figures, 5 of them I already own. And a couple of the other things he mentioned just weren't things that I was really into. Like he had a Notorious B.I.G. Pop, like a Funko Pop figure. He had Power Rangers. He had wrestlers. Those aren't really genres I'm into. But when it came to things like Ninja Turtles, He-Man, G.I. Joe, I always had all those same things. But when it comes to Ninja Turtles, I did not have these versions, and I was always really envious of him that he had them, because I think they're probably the coolest looking set of turtles ever. As much as I love the new stuff that NECA is making, as a comic book fan, I just love how comic booky these are. So as much as I love versions based on the cartoon and the live action movies, you just can't beat a good comic book as far as I'm concerned. So we've already taken a look at Donatello. Bring Michelangelo up here. Again, so they've all got different faces, so they've got different personality. I'm not sure if they all share the same parts otherwise. The bodies might be the same. But for weapons, you see he's got actual chains on his nunchucks, so that's pretty cool. It looks like the belts at the very least are different. Like his are they're hanging in different ways. So the heads are different, the belts are different, the weapons are different. The rest of the body, they might be the same, but who cares? They're all Ninja Turtles, they're all twins or whatever, so why wouldn't they all have the same physique? So yeah, like I love the way these look. Like they look hand-drawn. It just looks really cool. So here's Leo with his swords. Leo is always my personal favorite. And lastly, we got Raphael, who was Andrew's favorite. So yeah, these guys all look great. I'm happy to have these guys in my collection, but I'm really bummed how they ended up in my collection. I would have been happy to enjoy these things from a distance for many more years if it meant Andrew sticking around. But, I am glad, because I know Andrew really liked these things as well. So I'm glad that they ended up somewhere where somebody else cares about them just as much as he did. So there you go. There's NECA's Eastman and Laird Ninja Turtles. So next up, I've got the Dragon Zord from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Now, I was trying to find out a little bit about this figure before I shot this video, and I couldn't find out a whole lot, to be honest with you. I'm pretty sure this was produced by Bandai, although I'm not sure of the year. I couldn't find any kind of stamps on it anywhere to know what year it was produced. I think this might be like kind of a reproduction of a toy that they had made some years earlier. Like I did find some blog posts where people were reviewing a Dragon Zord toy, and they said it was originally released in 1993. Now I know Andrew did not have this thing in 1993. He got it sometime in the 2000s. So I don't think he got the original 1993 version. It's possible he might have went on eBay and got a 1993 Dragon Zord, but I don't think so. I thought he got it new. But when I looked at other Dragon Zords that were released in more recent years, they all look kind of like this. But there was one, I think it was called the Legacy Dragon Zord, which looked a lot like it, and I thought that's what this was because it came out around the right time. I think it was like 2013 or something, which sounded like the right time frame. But this here is just a sticker on this toy, but the Legacy Dragon Zord seemed to have like actual like sculpted little ridges here, so it wasn't the same toy. Another time I saw it, it looked like the same toy, but these stickers here, instead of having this kind of gold swirl on it, it was a different design. So I don't know, maybe this toy was released with variations, or I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because I never gave a shit about Power Rangers. I don't know why, because like I love Godzilla. I've always loved Godzilla. I own all of the old movies, and I know the old movies are just guys in rubber suits fighting each other. Sometimes the fights are pretty silly. Some of the Godzilla movies are pretty silly, like where Godzilla has a son. There's even one of the Godzilla movies where they talk to each other, which is really corny. And yet, I love Godzilla stuff. But when Power Rangers came out, I was already, I don't know, in my early teens, and I just couldn't get into it. It just seemed too cornbally with these, how they took an old Japanese show and then they shot these like American scenes to intercut with them, with American actors playing the Power Rangers outside of their suits. I don't think I've ever watched an episode. I've kind of walked in the room when my little brother was watching it, because my little brother was really into them. He had a bunch of the toys. And Andrew was actually closer to my little brother's age than Andrew was to my age. So it makes sense that they would have grew up on Power Rangers, but it was just not my thing. Who knows? Maybe if I sat down and just kind of appreciated it for what it was, maybe I could get into it. Honestly, maybe if I watched the original Japanese show with, dubbed over without all the corny American stuff added in, maybe that would have made me a fan of this stuff. I don't know. But either way, my knowledge on Power Rangers is extremely limited. I know the Dragon Zord, or I'm not going to say I know, I'm going to say I think. Because originally there was 5 Power Rangers. It was like, what? Red, blue, black, yellow, and pink. So those 5 Power Rangers, they all had a Zord that transformed into a different type of animal, and those animals could all merge together into a big robot, I think. Anyway, this guy came later because Tommy, the Green Ranger, kind of came afterwards, and I think he was like a bad guy for a while, and then he became the White Ranger. I don't know. But anyway, I know Tommy had the Dragon Zord. I think this figure might have actually came packaged with a Green Ranger figure. But again, I'm not 100% sure if Andrew bought this new or used. Why did I take this figure? So the thing is, and I'd actually kind of forgot about this, but when I was preparing for my last video about Andrew, when I was doing the video about his collection with the pictures that Richards had sent me, I was kind of doing a little bit of research on all the toys I could find in the pictures. And then I remembered that way back, several years ago, when there was a magazine called Toy Fair Magazine, it was a monthly publication about upcoming toys. Me and Andrew both wrote in to Toy Fair because we both wanted to try and get our letter published in the magazine. And my letter got published 2 months before Andrew's was. But I went back and I read those letters while shooting that video. And I remember in my letter I asked about Crow toys and Battle Beast toys. In Andrew's letter, he asked about Power Rangers, and he was saying that he knew Bandai was re-releasing some figures in the States, but they didn't seem to be coming to Canada. Was there any chance of any of this stuff coming to Canada? Because he really, really wanted a Dragon Zord. And the Toy Fair editor or whatever answered him and said, good news, Bandai is planning on shipping these figures to Canada, so stay tuned for that next year. Now, I don't think Andrew got this toy that soon afterwards, but he got it relatively soon afterwards, maybe within a year or two. So reading that letter, and knowing that I kind of prompted him to write that letter because it was a little competition between us, it reminded me how much he wanted this Dragon Zord and how much it meant to him. And also what I like about it is that it's not something I wanted, so that doesn't influence the way I think about this thing at all. Like when it comes to any of the other figures I showed you, the Ninja Turtles, the Superman, the Bizarro, those are all toys I wanted. I would have bought those on my own. And, you know, I am kind of tempted to put my Ninja Turtles with my Ninja Turtles. And I'm kind of tempted to put Superman with my other Superman. I'm not. I'm going to display them on a shelf together, which is going to be like my Andrew memorial shelf. But it's because I really like these things and I already collect those toy lines. With this Dragon Zord, whenever I see this thing, there is no way I'm going to look at it and just think, oh yeah, I love the Dragon Zord, or that's a cool toy. I could give a flying shit about this toy. Like, I think it's cool. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's actually kind of cool. It's a big robot dragon, so I'm not going to say that it sucks or anything, but I just never would have bought this. I had no interest in any Power Rangers toy, so when I look at this, I'm going to think, that's Andrew's toy. Andrew loved this toy, and this will probably remind me of Andrew more than anything else that I've got here. So yeah, I'm glad that I've got this thing. Like my wife Vanessa was kind of shocked when she saw the things that I brought home, and she thought I would get the Swiftwind figure, which is She-Ra's winged horse, because when me and him did our video together about our top 10 favorite toys, he said the She-Ra Swiftwind figure was his favorite toy in his collection, and it was something that I had bought him as a Christmas present. And I remember giving that to him, and he was elated to get it. He loved it. So she thought that's what I would take. But honestly, like, I already have a Swiftwind in my collection. When I see Swiftwind, I don't immediately think of Andrew because I really like that toy, and I've had it in my collection for several years. And honestly, it was one of the things that was on my maybe list of things I might pick up. But Richard had told me that another friend had already come by and taken Swiftwind anyway. And so I wanted one nice big piece to commemorate Andrew with. And so I went with the Dragon Zord. I'm glad I did. I think it's cool because of its connection to Andrew. This thing does something. Like, I was fiddling around with it a little bit when I was trying to clean it up. It's kind of a bummer that almost all of its stickers are peeling off. I might have to try and glue these down. But like, you see these arms come out here, like so. I think there's a robot. Like, he might even turn into a robot, or at the very least, he connects with the other Zords and turns into a big Voltron. So like, you open those up, and I think maybe another toy snaps on there to give him a big muscular arm. And then I think this mouth opens up, and he's got like a robot head inside. I really don't want to mess around with it. Maybe I'll watch a video about how to transform it or something. But honestly, I don't want to break it, and I'll probably never transform it, especially if it has to connect to other toys. I'm not going to get the other toys. So it's going to go in my display just like this. Maybe I'll tidy it up a little bit more, try and fix these stickers. But otherwise, there you go. That's my Dragon Zord. So here's the last piece that I have to show you. So this is a Masters of the Universe Classics box set that features Molar and Skeletor. Now, you might be wondering, like, what the hell is this thing if you're not already familiar with it? And this was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive set back in 2010. I can't even remember when Andrew got this thing because he certainly didn't go to the Comic-Con. He might have found it at a local comic book store. I don't think he would have sought it out on eBay, but he may have. And what this thing is based on is, if you've ever seen the show Robot Chicken, it was a show that was on for several years, a couple of years ago, where they would basically stop motion animation with action figures, and they used a lot of well-known action figures like G.I. Joes and He-Man and stuff, and they would make them do funny little things. It was like a sketch comedy show using action figures. And there was a sketch done where Molar, the Eternian dentist, was coming over for Skeletor's checkup, and Skeletor wanted nothing to do with it. So anyway, at the time of that skit, Molar was a complete joke. There was no such thing as Molar, the attorney and dentist. What they used for that toy in the Robot Chicken was probably a mishmash of other pieces, like maybe a He-Man body. Then they probably made like a smock out of material. And then I don't know where the head came from. They might have cast that themselves or borrowed it from a Ken doll or something. They tended to do that. They would make their own custom action figures and have them interact with real action figures. So it was it was a gag. And then the Mattel decided to run with that gag and make a box set at their 2010 Comic-Con. And this is the kind of figure that's great for a Comic-Con exclusive, because it's a real bummer when they take a main character and say you can only get this at the Comic-Con, because everybody that collects these toys would want that character, and now they have to shell out big bucks to get it. So I like it when they make toys like this, which are kind of like niche things that only a really hardcore collector would want. So that way you're not, alienating any kind of casual fans or fans that are operating on a budget, which, let's be honest, that's probably most of us. So I did not pick up this set. For one, I wasn't a big Robot Chicken fan. I did not see the sketch when it originally aired, so I didn't have any connection to the joke of Molar. And also I thought it was kind of silly. Like, Molar would look kind of stupid in my collection. I'd almost think he like dumbed it down or something. So I wasn't interested in this set, even though I do appreciate the humor of it. And I like that Mattel went so far to make this for the fans that do appreciate this type of thing. So yeah, I'm a pretty near completist when it comes to Masters of the Universe Classics. I have most of the figures. The few that I don't have are usually ones that sold out really quickly before I had a chance to get them and then became really expensive on the secondary market. Otherwise, I have nearly everything, but I didn't have this. And to be honest, I forgot Andrew had this. I remember when he bought it, but that was a couple of apartments ago. And as he has since moved, like I said, depending on which apartment he's in, he has a certain amount of room to display things. And he might have felt the same way about this that I kind of do, that he bought it as a novelty, but it was kind of corny to keep in his display. So he had this in one of his tote bins. So I've been over to his current apartment several times. He's been there for about 5 years. And he has Castle Grayskull set up, and he has all of his Masters of the Universe figures. He has the Swiftwind horse. So I'm used to seeing his Masters of the Universe collection. But I hadn't seen this thing around for so many years, and I just forgot that he had it. So when I went over there, to see Richard, and he was like, yeah, go through these bins, I pulled this out, and I had a good laugh, because I was like, oh yeah, this stupid thing. I forgot all about this. And yeah, I'll be honest, like, yeah, who else would appreciate this? Like, I have a newfound appreciation for it, I guess, in the years since it has come out. And I like that Andrew liked it, because I think he was more a fan of Robot Chicken than I ever was. So, yeah, I just kind of had to grab it. Now, this thing is not really boxed up, but it's not loose. Like, I couldn't, say, resell this thing on eBay and say this thing is still in its main packaging, because there's a whole outer box to it that's missing. You'll see here, this is just plain brown cardboard. Andrew has kind of cut this thing up. I don't know why he did this, because if he was going to keep it like this, he probably should have just kept it in the box, because he's cut the back of the box off here and he's just kind of taped it to the cardboard there, so that way he still has these little file cards that are on the back of the box. And he obviously never opened up the figures. Like you can see, they're still attached to these plastic bits in the packaging. And I think part of the reason for that is you see Skeletor's here in a dentist chair, but it's not really a sculpted accessory. It's just a piece of cardboard on a piece of plastic. If you were to open this set up, you couldn't display Skeletor sitting in a chair anymore. You'd just have to stand him up. So Andrew liked this setup enough to keep it as is, yet he obviously wanted to open it up enough that he could physically touch them, so he kind of destroyed the box. Since he's gone this far, I'm probably going to open it up the rest of the way. If this thing was fully boxed, even though I don't usually keep a lot of toys boxed, I would probably respectfully keep it in the box the way he kept it. But since it's mostly open anyway, I think I'm going to open it up. Because one thing that's kind of interesting about this set, well, first let me talk about Molar. So Molar here, put him up a little closer. Like, he's pretty cool. I'm not sure what body he's using, but the boots here are probably like He-Man's boots. He's probably got He-Man's legs, He-Man's arms. He's got these gloved hands. I think they might belong to Hordak. The head is entirely new. So it's kind of based on the fake head that they created in Robot Chicken. So it's kind of cool with these sideburns. He's got almost kind of an Elvis-y haircut. The smock, this is obviously a newly created piece. They didn't reuse this from any existing characters. I'm not sure if it's removable or not, but underneath, I'm sure he's just got a muscular He-Man type body. For accessories, so you see he's got right here, this is right from the little skit. So he's got these, I don't know what you call them, tooth pliers, I guess, with Skeletor's removed tooth right inside there. And then he's got a chrome drill here as well. I believe he had some other accessories, like some dental floss, which is also something he used in the skit as a weapon, and maybe a couple other chrome items like a mirror. Now, those things might even be in this package somewhere, but I don't think so. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they were in a loose baggie and Andrew kept those separately. If so, I didn't take those. I must have missed them. I'm sure they were in one of his tote bins, but again, that doesn't really bother me any. As for the Skeletor, so you got Skeletor here. He's got his two swords. He's got his Havoc staff here. The only piece that's new on Skeletor is the head. I don't know if you can see that or not, but he's got a missing tooth. So that, again, directly from the skit, because Molar pulls his tooth out. So that's kind of funny. Again, like if you had this in your display, it'd be kind of weird if this was your only Skeletor, that you've got this guy with a big front tooth missing. But it's kind of a gag, you know, it's kind of funny. I like that they went through the trouble of making a new head with one tooth missing. But one thing that's kind of cool about this particular Skeletor is I actually needed a classic Skeletor. So I know I said I was a completist when it came to the Masters of the Universe Classics line, but I don't necessarily feel like I need every version of every character. So Skeletor, obviously, since he's one of the two main characters in the Masters of the Universe line, he came out very, very early in the line. So the original one came out in 2009. And I did not get that figure when it came out. I started collecting Masters of the Universe Classics probably a year and a half after the line started. I was able to go back and get some of the characters I missed, but I did not get the original Skeletor. Now, I probably would have, because you have to have a Skeletor in your collection. I would have sought him out for sure, except they made a new version of him in 2011 with his battle armor. So here you see battle armor Skeletor, which is his second best known outfit. So rather than the kind of the crossbones thing you see on this figure, he's got this battle damaged chest armor. And this figure actually originally came with a head very much like this one, not missing a tooth. So that was fine for me. I was like, okay, I've got that Skeletor. I really don't need to go seek out, you know, the 2009 version. This head here I actually prefer, and that came as a bonus accessory with a whole nother figure years later. But I displayed that head with this body, and I was like, there you go. That's my perfect Skeletor. I'm happy with that. Plus, they released a figure in 2010, I believe, of Keldor, which is Skeletor before he was mutated. So I got Keldor here. So you see with Keldor, it's basically Skeletor, except he's got this human face with the mustache. And his armor's a little cleaner. Instead of clawed feet, like both these Skeletors have, Keldor's got like human boots. But anyway, so once I got the Keldor figure, and I had this Skeletor figure with the other head, I figured if I wanted a more classic looking Skeletor, I could always take the other head that I have and put it on this body, and then I would have a Skeletor with the classic looking head with the crossbones. It would be close to the original, but he still wouldn't be quite right because he have the human boots and all that sort of stuff. And even since all that, I've got what is my all-time favorite Skeletor. I've got this Skeletor here, which is based on the cartoon. So this guy is nice and simple. It's the animated version of the classic look. So he's got the skull, or the crossbones in his chest. Now, mind you, he still has boots instead of claws, because that's how he was portrayed in the cartoon. But between all these, I was very content. I actually have, I think, one or two other versions of Skeletor besides these ones here. But I figured with all of these, I've got a good enough Skeletor, and I could mix and match pieces and create essentially a Masters of the Universe 2009 classic Skeletor. But I did not have it. So this figure here is actually pretty cool. So this figure here is actually a pretty cool piece to add to my collection, because I can take the head that originally came with this figure, plop it on him if I don't want to display the toothless version, and then I've got essentially my 2009 Masters of the Universe Classics original Skeletor. So that's something that I have been lacking in my collection. So it's cool to get him, but I'm probably not going to do that. It's nice to know that I can, but I'm going to keep these two guys together and let the gag play out on my shelf. So, yeah, I was thankful to get all of this stuff. This one was kind of fun, and it was unexpected because, like I said, I forgot Andrew even had this thing. So when I went into his house to grab some things, this was definitely not on my radar. So it's kind of fun because Masters of the Universe Classics is one of my all-time favorite toy lines. I pretty much have them all, so there's, it's pretty rare for me to add something new to that collection. So yeah, this was a nice surprise, and it will definitely remind me of Andrew every time I look at it.
So those are the pieces that I inherited from my good friend Andrew Vaughan. And I know maybe this video was kind of a bummer. I'm sorry about that, but I've got lots of new stuff already, so I'll be back with a new video with new toys pretty soon. But thanks a lot for sticking around and watching this video. So yeah, feel free to leave comments, questions below, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.